All right, welcome to Lights Camera Barstool. Today we're doing a review of Juror number 2, a movie that me, Klemmer, and Fight saw a couple days ago. We have attempted to record this episode, I want to say 5 times. We
At
tried
least.
four times yesterday. 15 different technical problems come up. We're a multi-million dollar media company. All the technology is broken nonstop. It is incredible. But
Yeah.
all we're working today.
It worked out
Hopefully,
well, though. It did work out well.
yes, because the Star Wars news, which will be at the top of our agenda, didn't drop until earlier today, and we were going to record yesterday. So it did all kind of work out in the end. But me, Clemmer, and Gooch, juror number 2 at the end. But first, we have some news, starting with the fact that apparently the next Star Wars trilogy has found its new showrunner, I guess, in Simon Kinberg. He's going to produce and direct it. From what they're saying, not going to be attached to the actual main sequel. It's not going to be like a sequel trilogy to the sequel trilogy. It's going to be separate, which I think is smart. I think this is a good place to start with this, is to kind of dissect Simon Kinberg, because to me, I think of Simon Kinberg as like he's a franchise guy. He jumps into franchises. He tosses out a couple movies. Some of them are good, and some of
Yeah.
them stink. And that's just kind of how it goes with him. And he
What are
attaches
the good
to.
ones?
Okay, so here I have it all listed out. Here's the movies that he has produced or written or both that I think
Let's
are.
let's start with written because I do think that is like the important credit I do here. too. Anyone could produce. I mean, I could, you could put my name as I produced Manchester by the Sea. I mean, like anyone could be a producer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but he's also, production is going to be a big part of this as well, because it's like you want his imprint to be good. You know what I mean? Because like if you look at the imprint of some other producers in the Star Wars world right now, it's not good, because like they're like, hey, we have XYZ amount of money. I think we should filter this into overly. We're not going to do on location shooting. We're going to do CGI. Like they have like a level of influence at that level, like that could really fuck up a movie. And I think in Star Wars that is important. If we're looking at writer, let's go straight down the list for Simon Kinberg. So, Triple X State of the Union, he wrote. Bad, bad movie. Mr.
You
and
can
Mrs.
have. I
Smith,
will. I will defend. You can have worse first credits than a
yes.
triple X movie,
A,
but
a Triple X sequel, too. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I like Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I don't think it's a perfect movie. I think that there are lines in it that are snappy, and I dig it. I like the vibe of the movie. He didn't direct, obviously, it was Doug Liman, but I liked it.
I did too. But I think that's a lot more alignment. Like it was flashy and sharp. You watch Lyman, like especially in that era, like when he's coming off Go, like that's a flashy, like fun movie. It had a lot of that same energy. I mean, not to be shitty, but I don't give a lot of that credit to Kinsberg. But
I,
that's
I
me.
would I would give some of the dialogue credit to him. Like I think
That's
it
fair.
was a
And the
sexy
dialogue
movie
was
regardless.
snappy and fun. Like it
Yeah.
was, like for what it was. It was.
Yeah. And it was so good that it broke up a legendary couple and brought a new one together.
He,
That's
he was ghostwriting. He was ghostwriting a divorce.
yeah, basically. X-Men The Last Stand. I have a soft spot for X-Men The
Bad.
Last Stand. I don't think it's a good movie. I think it's okay considering where the franchise was.
But it's bad. That one, from a writing perspective, like really
Sure.
fucks up some X-Men stuff. Like, and we'll get to it in a minute. He fucks it up twice. The same exact X-Men storyline,
Okay, well
which is impressive.
let's see what you feel about the next one. Jumper.
I like Jumper.
Yeah, that's
That's
like your
one of his
number
good
one
ones.
movie all time. He wrote it and produced it.
That's yeah, no, that's his good credit. He
That's
also
his
has
singular good one.
no. The next one I also think whatever's
Yeah.
next up, I think is also pretty
Sherlock
good.
Holmes. Sherlock
Yes,
Holmes, I think, is a good movie.
oh. See, that's
Yeah.
his I don't. best. I think that's his best credit. But I'll be fair here. I gave Doug Liman credit for Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I blame more Guy Ritchie for, and I know I'm in the minority. I think most Yeah, people enjoy that movie a lot. I didn't hate it. I thought it was like like a C minus for me. Just didn't really hit for me. But I think a lot of that, and I like Guy Ritchie. Like Snatch is great. Like he's done some good movies for
Mhm.
sure. That one just didn't hit for me. That might just be a personal thing. I'm not going to blame Kinsberg for that.
I think if you're gonna
Okay.
do like a tiering of Guy Ritchie movies, it would definitely not be in like the A or S tier. It would be like B. It would like that would be firmly
Yeah.
B for me. X-Men First Class he produced, which I think I'm just gonna throw it out there. As far as production credit, that is for where X-Men was, that was a total revitalization for me.
You know how this works. That has nothing to do with that movie. Like, do we know who was? Yeah, it was because he wrote the last one.
Yeah, but then what are
It's
you gonna do?
Bradley Cooper. Like
But then you
his
give a lot
track.
more credit to Matthew Vaughn, and like Matthew Vaughn, do you think Matthew Vaughn's some sort of like excellent writer? Because then like he goes and makes like the bullshit like Argyle. You know what I mean?
I know, but I'm just saying I don't think Kinsberg had anything to do with that movie. And now I could be proven wrong here, but like typically with these franchise movies, if you write one, you direct one, you're then attached as a producing credit for the next one. We've seen this so many times.
So well, he was a producer on this, but then he wrote the next one. He wrote X-Men: Days of Futures Past, which
Which
I like.
I think actually from a writing perspective, he did a great job there
I agree.
because that franchise was fucking all over the map, and that movie somehow fixed like everything in the Foxverse. For
Mhm.
and then
And
it
it
got fucked up,
tied
and then it
together.
gets fucked up again. But
Yeah, but it tied together two totally different cast groupings, and I think it was pretty flawless. I think it was cool. As far as like we're talking about like Avengers team ups and stuff like that was to me was one of the cooler ones. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
getting like all these different cast members across different iterations of multiverse bullshit. Like that was the first one where I was like, oh, this could be really cool. Obviously, it didn't totally work out in a lot of the other ones, but in this one, I think it was good. He also wrote This Means War, which is just like a bullshit rom com. Like I don't really put a lot of stock
who
into.
was in that? I forget that one.
It was the one with not Tom Hardy. Yeah, Tom Hardy and Chris Pine were the two main guys in that.
Oh
Along
yeah,
with
yeah.
Smith. It's just a whatever movie. Fantastic Four, bad, 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 bad,
It's
bad movie.
this is where it really starts to get bad. I
Yeah,
think like his movie entries get really bad from this point
What
forward.
did he do with that one, Kenjac?
he wrote Fantastic Four. These
Didn't
I
direct it though, just wrote it.
just wrote it.
All right.
Yeah, that was Josh Trank.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Michael B.
And
Jordan.
actually, Matthew Vaughn, I believe, produced Fantastic Four because we interviewed him about it, and he was like, "Yeah, sometimes like you're just in the middle of production, you're like, this is a pile of shit, and there's nothing we can do about it. Like it's just that we're too far gone." The X-Men Apocalypse, bad movie. I hesitate as far as from a writing perspective to put a lot of the blame directly on him because there is some lines in that that are in Apocalypse which are cool. Like I think that when what's his name like on a whole the movie's bad. But the scene where like Apocalypse is like recruiting people, I think there's a lot of cool lines there where he's like oh, when you people were in the dirt, you needed us to rise you up, and like the scene where of course Magneto gets his whole family killed. I think that writing's pretty cool. The scene where like he
I
kills all of like
got
those Polish guys, that's cool.
is this not the movie where Jennifer Lawrence says the infamous line?
That is
Big
Dark Phoenix, I think.
Dark is that Dark Phoenix?
Yeah, that is
Okay.
Dark Phoenix. So yeah, the X-Men Apocalypse, not there's some redeemable scenes, not a good movie. Dark
Bad.
Phoenix, which is just straight bad. That's straight dog shit movie. And that's the one where it's I don't know if they had like a movie commitment or something like that, but like that didn't feel like anybody top to bottom wanted to be in that movie.
Yep, and that's where I was referencing earlier. It's the Dark Phoenix storyline. Fucks it up again.
Mhm.
That's tough.
Yeah, that was rough. Then the 355, which was very bad. Yeah, that was, and he directed that one, or directed that one as well. That was bad move. That was just a shitty Netflix dump with some great names attached to it, Jessica Chastain and shit, but not a good movie. And then there's a new one coming out soon called The Killer's Game, being believe JJ Perry directing, which we wrote as well. But on the production side, and again, you could say we don't know which ones we want to credit him with, anything or nothing or some, and they're all First Class. Elysium, he's done a lot of stuff with Neil Blomkamp, which some of it's been good, some of it's been. I like Elysium. I did not like Chappie, which he also produced. Cinderella with Kenneth Branagh, which is a good movie. I think more people I feel like not a lot of people think of that as like a definitive Cinderella movie or like in the same ranks as like Beauty and the Beast remake and shit. But that Cinderella I thought was good. He produced The Martian, produced Deadpool and Wolverine, Logan, the was Deadpool 2, Haunting in Venice, like the other Kenneth Branagh stuff like Murder on the Orient Express and Haunting in Venice. That's bad shit. But
I saw
That's
saw
Branagh.
Kenneth Branagh.
you
I
saw
saw
it?
him. Yeah. Saw him after on Sunday after I saw Emma Stone do a intro for a movie. Then I stepped out and Kenneth Branagh was there getting a medium popcorn with his wife.
No.
It's kind of cool. So here's one other thing where I will give him, in the sense of Star Wars, more credit is that he was a consultant on The Force Awakens, which is I think personally the best of the sequel trilogy, and
Me
he was
too.
also a consultant on Rogue One, which is probably the best of the spin-off movies.
That's
He
the
was
best Star Wars movies, in my opinion, since Empire Strikes Back.
and
I
then
like that better than Return of the Jedi.
he was also a executive producer on Legion, which was a fantastic show on Fox.
Yeah.
If you're talking like X-Men stuff, that's one of the best ones they've ever done. And he was also the creator, executive producer, and writer of Star Wars Rebels, which was a very, very good animated show, which was good enough that they not only it's gotten, I think, a lot more respect in retrospect alongside Clone Wars, but like they've included stuff from Rebels now into the main live action Star Wars shit. Like characters from Rebels were in Ahsoka, characters from Rebels were, I believe, now in Mando. Like it's people liked it enough to get through there. So he has experience in the Star Wars world, and his experience in the Star Wars world are three good things since the Disney acquisition, or Star Wars or Rebels is just before that. But like three good things from Star Wars. it's a mixed bag. I'll give it. I'll say it's definitely a mixed bag. There's no question, right? But I would say on a whole, this isn't something that's super exciting.
I think it's worse than a mixed bag. When you have a property like Star Wars, and maybe I should also reevaluate how much I care about this product anymore. Maybe I'm just too old. But like, if you have a product like Star Wars that this is this great, right, and this financially relevant, and this much of a blockbuster, it means so much to people. You should be able to get a mixed bag. Is not enough. That's shit. That's like putting an average starting pitcher on the Yankees. No, average starting pitcher, maybe you have him in the A's, but not on the Yankees. Yankees, you expect more. Star Wars, you expect more. I expect the best of the best. The best director you can find, I expect to run Star Wars. And, like, I know I'm just throwing a name out here, but like a Jon Favreau, a guy that seems to get it, right? No, I don't love it. Like, he should be the guy overseeing everything, in my opinion. Someone like that. This guy, who's a lower tier director, honestly, like, this is, like, you said mixed bag, you're probably being kind. Like, no one would call him a good director.
So he's not tabbed to direct.
Right, but you know he's going to direct one of these, right? Like, that's just how it works, right? You show, like, the guy that's kind of overseeing everything is going to end up usually having, but even if he doesn't, do I trust this guy to oversee anything? Like, this big?
He feels like, and you're saying, like, they should get someone better. I don't think they want that. Like, they clearly want a studio guy. No offense to Simon Kinberg, but he's a team player. That's what I get out of his credits. They like franchises like him. They'll bring him back. They like working with him. He probably comes in under budget, delivers things on time, which is an admirable quality. But like, if you want the best product, I mean, George Lucas wasn't a studio guy when he started Star Wars. He was a pioneer. He's a maverick. I doubt he would have worked underneath this umbrella today. So, like, it comes down to Lucasfilm. Like, what do they want? I think they want something safe, which is disappointing. Like, the franchise won't get better without risk.
Yeah. I think
Eric Goose, by the way, everything you just said was 1,000% right on every level. Like, you nailed it perfectly. And you're exactly right about Lucas. Think about those 70s guys, right? Yeah. But, Spielberg was the most studio friendly, but you all had Scorsese, Coppola, Christ. Coppola and Lucas are tied to the hip. They're both hated the studios. That's what they fucking started their career on. And, now you're exactly right. Like, look at his credits. Look at all the producing things that he was kind of given. I bet he's a great guy. I bet he's a nice person. Yeah. I bet he delivers stuff on time, probably on budget. Studio guy, 1,000% right, Gooch. And that's the direction they went in. But you're also exactly right. We're no risk, no reward. And this is going to be more of the shit. And I got to say, Star Wars is, and I know I'm a casual. I used to be, I think, more, but now I'm probably, they're losing us, man. I'm like, I don't know. I was very disappointed with this news today.
It kind of reminds me just of like in the same comparison that you're saying, like, think about with Solo, a Star Wars story. Like, they have like a more innovative crew, Lord and Miller directing it. And they're like, actually want to have Ron Howard, which Ron Howard to me is like the director level version of Kinberg. You know what I mean? Where it's like, if you wanted like a safe studio guy to come in and just like finish shit up, like close it, like, yeah, that's him. He's never gonna throw. He's just like straight fastball down the middle. He's got one pitch. You know what I mean? Like, that's all he's got.
But it's a great thing. Great guy, by all accounts. Ron Howard is beloved in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Does stuff on budget. Like Gooch said, does stuff on time. He is a studio director. And Ron Howard always has been. Go back to his Happy Days days.
Exactly.
Like, Ron Howard was always a company guy. Like, he stuck around with that show way longer than he wanted to, just to make ABC happy and make the cast happy before he eventually left the show. Like, he is a studio guy. And that's what we're getting now, I guess, which is fucking great.
I think that, and I wrote, I blogged about this too. I think there's two main keys for if you're making a new Star Wars franchise, if you want it to be successful. And I think the first is that I think you want to stick to practical, and I'm curious if you guys agree with me more on this. Yeah. I think you want to stick to practical as much as possible, because like fans of this franchise, like, we like puppets, we like on location shooting, we like costumes, goofy voices, miniatures. Like,
thank you.
It does not, for our fans of this franchise, that does not hurt our suspension of disbelief, like, at all. Like, that is not a problem. And I think you see the proof in the pudding there when you go and watch something like Mandalorian or whatever. Like, they put that shit in there and we like it. Like the goofy dude voiced by like Nick Nolte in Mando, I forget the guy's name. Like, that shows up. That's a little puppet. The mouth does not line up with the dialogue at all. None of us give a shit. We love that. So I think that, and you obviously need CGI moments, but I think the more you limit that, the better off you are. I think that's a major key for anything feature Star Wars. And then secondly, I think you need to really limit the amount of characters that you're focusing in on, because that is such, I think, like, one of the great things about the original trilogy is you focus so hard in on Leia, Luke, and Han, and like, you can you're rooting for like Luke, who's like the classic myth, like farm boy to king, like Jesus Messiah bullshit, whatever. You want like the what do you call it? Girls want to fuck him, guys want to be him. Han Solo, like Leia has like all the same like sort of like the unforced like female badass like traits and all that shit. You have all these really cool characters, and you really focus in on those three, and you have a decent amount of time of all three of them on screen together. You do not get that at all in the sequel trilogy. Like the main three, Poe, Finn, and Rey, like they're barely ever on screen together. And like they have no chemistry, no relationship. You don't care about them. So I think if you really focus in, you zero in on like a couple characters, let us connect to them as an audience, and then like you feed in all these everything else comes extra. Like all the people in the Star Wars that know like the Merple Blurpo names and stuff like that, half that shit's like made up in their head. They obsess over 3 lines that they give in like a side sequence. Like 90% of these movies, you're just getting lines from one of the main characters, which is something I think they could really do for it in Star Wars. But yeah, that's my 2 big things I think Star Wars should go back to.
I think you're absolutely right about the characters, Kenjac. And like this is what George Lucas has a lot of flaws. Can't write dialogue. There's a lot of negatives, but there's a lot of positives about George Lucas, and no one is better at creating a world. And you're right, they focus on 3 characters, but the thing is, George Lucas spent a lot of time and care on these guys that had 3 lines. Now, it was smart that we don't focus on it, because you're right. The 3 most recent movies are a mess, like character-wise, and like they're all over the place. We have characters, and we have characters like the smoke monster who doesn't even really matter, and like all this shit. Like it was such a chaotic 3 films. But I feel like George Lucas cared just as much as these goofy guys as he did for the main characters. But he was right to highlight the main characters, and had enough confidence in the audience that they would pick up the ones that really care on these other guys.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, Gooch.
No, I was just gonna say I agree with all the points you're all just making. Exactly right. I mean, I think something that got lost on this last trilogy, and even got away from Lucas in the prequel trilogy, is like it's a space opera. Let it be theatrical. Like from the way it sounds, like the way the dialogue is written, it can be theatrical. The way it looks, like doesn't have to be perfect on every single corner. It can be a little sloppy. As long as it immerses you in that world. And I will say, one of my big things I have wanted for them is to have one person overseeing a trilogy. So in that respect with Simon Kinberg, I do think that is a good idea. That was a huge issue with the last trilogy, especially with you guys just brought up. It was a mess, just a mess.
Absolute and total mess. But yeah, that's Star Wars. More Batman spin-offs are apparently coming, according to Matt Reeves. More character-driven, like the Penguin. We're big fans of the Penguin. We've been loving it. And I think one of our previous attempts to record this, we were trying to like list out different Batman villains you could really fit in this. In a world where like you can make a down-to-earth Batman villain that's character-driven. Which ones do you graft into a Batverse thing that you can make grounded, you can make interesting? That's a question I have that I just don't have the answer to. But I'm also not like, I don't know the Batman comics like that, so I'm not entirely sure.
I love Batman comics. There was a great series about the Gotham police. It might have been called Gotham Patrol. I forget. But it focused more on Gordon, and especially 2 cops, Detective Renee Montoya and Detective Harvey Bullock. Bullock is kind of like this sloppy guy that's like kind of like, he's fat, he's kind of gross, but he's a good detective. And he's also like not politically correct at all. And Montoya is this very like business-like woman who kind of does stuff by the book. And they had kind of a good dynamic. And they would go and solve not just like supervillain crimes, but just like regular crimes around Gotham. And then sometimes you'd have supervillain. But it was a pretty good comic series. It was written by one of the guys that helped write for The Wire. And like has back on there, Ed Brubaker, I think his name is. But he's done stuff, but he was the main writer on this comic series. It was fantastic. Like I could see that being a series.
I think that may have been in discussions at one point, so that wouldn't shock me at all. I know the Arkham Asylum series was, and maybe still is coming, series set in just, the asylum. But I think the Gotham City PD thing was something that they threw out. And yeah, that'd be great. Catwoman, I think, is like the obvious first one off the bat, because it's already a character that's been introduced.
Exactly. Two-Face?
Two-Face could be good. Political, you can make that basically a, dirty politics drama.
Bane, I think, is tough. Poison Ivy, I think, is probably tough. Mr. Freeze is tough.
I think Clayface would be fantastic.
Scarecrow, too, I think, along those same lines. I think you could do some cool shit with Scarecrow.
There's been
some characters we haven't seen, like Clayface, that we haven't seen in movies. Like Clayface is this tortured actor that could never make it big, and then it ends up, having kind of those, when you have those villains that have kind of that very dramatic backstory that has some real like darkness to it, that's gonna hit.
Mm-hmm. Let's see what the ventriloquist. That one will be. I think that one stays behind.
Yeah.
I love the ventriloquist, but I don't know.
I'm gonna get Calendar Man.
I mean, Black Mask would be great. I mean, you could definitely fit that in, no problem.
They've done that before on like CW, was it? They had like
they did a movie with Black Mask. What was it, Birds of Prey? That wasn't
That's what it
great,
was.
but that wasn't.
Right.
Yeah, but that wasn't. I
you
like
could do
his movie.
Black Mask is a mob boss. You could do
Yeah.
a whole fucking series on that. You know, I know Penguin has something like, but Black Mask you could do a real thing on.
You could do a
family. It's interesting.
You could do Court of Owls, but the only
Yeah.
thing with Court of Owls is like you kind of need Batman for that. And
That's a movie thing, I think, more than a series.
I don't think you can do that without Batman. And I don't think they're gonna put Batman on TV, by the way. Like I don't think he's gonna be in this next episode.
Yeah. Ratcatcher can't. I don't think that works too much.
Nah.
Maxi Zeus. That one I think stays behind. Flamingo. That's
No.
a cool name. I mean, if you're doing the Penguin, why can't you do the Flamingo?
Like there's like a character called Firefly. Like
Yeah.
he's an arsonist.
Brendan
Like-
Fraser.
Brendan Fraser did play him in the Batgirl canceled movie. Yeah.
That's right. Okay, well there you go. That's another like that could have been like that's one. There's a guy named Killer Moth who dresses like a moth and just like but he's like a serial killer. Now obviously you make it less goofy, less cartoonish, but they've done that with Penguin I think really well.
Yeah.
Hugo Strange.
Dr.
Hugo Strange.
I just saw Humpty Dumpty. I think that one stays in the bullpen for now. But yeah, I mean, if they can make any of these characters, I think as grounded and as interesting as they did with the Penguin, then sure, absolutely. And I think that even if you look at the way that they approach this, like as great as the actual like performance by Colin Farrell is in the Penguin, like they introduced a brand new character in Kristen Milioti as Sophia Falcone, and like she is the star of the show. Like as much as like Colin Farrell is amazing as the Penguin, like Kristen Milioti blows him away in my opinion. Like it's so good, and that's a brand new character. If they could do that with her and something that we really don't have any previous bearing on with Batman, they could do it with anybody. So very interesting.
You guys have seen Batman Returns, right? With Michelle Pfeiffer and Danny
Yeah.
Like Max Schreck, Christopher Walken. That's a brand new character. And that character is awesome. Like you can mix in new with I think that's perfectly fine. You don't need to stick to the Bible of the comics. As long as you
Sophia is a comics character.
Yeah, but I'm just saying like we don't have previous
no.
introduction to her. You
I
know
have
what
not
mean?
maybe
on screen.
She's big in The Long Halloween. If you've ever read that.
Oh, I have read that.
Yeah.
I'm just getting old, I guess.
Tom Holland and Austin Butler have been cast in American Speed for Amazon, based on the true story of two brothers who were race car drivers that financed their racing activities with proceeds from drug smuggling, money, and tax evasion. Tom Holland and Austin Butler together in a movie sounds cool. I wish it was more like an actual, because based on what this is more like a crime movie. Kind of wish it was more like a racing movie. That sounds more fun, and especially because we saw even before Juror #2 the trailer for like F1. Fucking looks cool. Like I want more racing movies, and I think that adding those two into it would be fun.
It's kind of funny. We were just talking about Tom Holland and kind of doing a deep dive on where his career goes forward from here. And then he gets cast again. So I think it's pretty obvious he's got a new agent. Like he gets cast in just the two best projects he's ever been cast in, like back to back. So I'm excited. I mean, there must be a word out on Holland to get him like in more serious stuff, and he is looking to take on the challenge, which I love that for him. This sounds great. I read into it. Very interesting story. Never heard of it before. And they were not just like, stockyard racers. They were racing at Le Mans. Like, I think this could be a lot of fun. We talk about Logan Lucky all the time. That's not necessarily racing, but heist around a racetrack and, crime around a racetrack can be just as entertaining.
Yeah. Very interested.
I'm in too. Like F1, like both of our eyes like perked up when we saw that. We're like, oh, this looks fucking sick.
Yeah,
I'm all in for F1. I'm all in for this Tom Holland movie too. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. A new Godzilla movie is officially in the work from Godzilla -1 director Takashi Yamazaki. Godzilla -1 was amazing, and I feel like it's like the most obvious no-brainer, no shit. They're going to make a second Godzilla movie with him. And I know we talked about it a bit when we reviewed Godzilla -1. Like, it's incredible. It's amazing that they did this with the budget that they had. I think it was like fucking $50 million or something like that, and it looked as good as like anything.
15.
Marvel. Yeah, like $15 million. But the working conditions in Japan are vastly different than they are in the US from budgeting purposes. It's just as a note. But very, very down. This guy gets Godzilla. He gets what makes him move. And like I do like that we almost have like a dueling version of it where we have like the wing guard big CGI stupid bullshit one where it's like, hey, just turn off your brain and fucking watch Godzilla fight a monkey. That's fine. But I also like that we have something that is like actually doing a legit attempt at making like a real movie, like not just a piece of entertainment from the Yamazaki, because I loved Godzilla -1. It was so good. Did you see it yet, Clemmer?
I have not.
It's on Netflix. You should. Dude. Dude,
oh no,
so
who is it?
Oh, you got
Oh,
the monkey Funko. Holy shit!
with the fist.
Oh, the turbo fist. I forgot about that. How Dan Stevens was his dentist is such a fucking stupid movie.
So good.
Hubs loves Godzilla, so I always ask him like, "What do you think?" And I think he was a pretty big fan of Godzilla Minus. It sounds like everybody was. I gotta check it out. It sounds like a very fun movie.
Dude, it's like deep. It's like emotionally deep. Like it's Godzilla's like barely even a part of it, really. It's like nothing really. It's almost nothing to do with him, to be honest. That is it's so good. And Godzilla is terrifying in the movie too. That's one of the things I feel like is different. Like I wasn't scared of Godzilla in any of the Wingard movies, but like Godzilla in -1, I'm like, this is a horrifying, scary creature.
All right, wow, you're really selling it. I like it more and more.
The last two Toho Godzilla movies, I'd recommend both of them, Klemmer.
Okay.
Shin Godzilla?
Shin Godzilla was fucking scary. Yeah,
very, very cool, different Godzilla take where it's like more like how would the government react to Godzilla landing, and it's like basically takes place in a conference room, like them like planning out their like strategic response. Yeah, it was fantastic. And then the new Godzilla, in my opinion, best Godzilla, even better than the original best Godzilla movie.
Is Godzilla still? Is it -1 still in?
Incredibly Spielberg. Like
like
Godzilla,
that.
it's like as Spielbergian as you can get.
Great musical cues, great dramatic moments, like weaving in and out of like action and like actual human emotion. Like it's crazy. It's a and then expertly acted too. All the actors in that are unreal. So good. It's on Netflix, I believe, still, Clemmer. I don't want to guarantee that, but it's worth a rental.
No. It looks like they have a special at least in New York, Godzilla -1, because Godzilla's 70th. I thought I saw. It's playing on Tuesday next week. Maybe I'll go.
I would. I don't recommend seeing it in the colorless version, which I know they've been pushing into theaters. It wasn't shot for that. If that makes sense. Like it's something they did in post, so it doesn't look all that great.
Alamo Draft House thing, but all right, no, I'll definitely keep an eye out on streaming for sure.
I think still one of the smelliest theaters I've ever been in. By the way, was no, not the Alamo, but Godzilla -1. I went to it opening night last year when it played in theaters briefly. And so the Godzilla fandom, sneaky, stinky crowd.
Oh, no. They're like very similar to the Venom guys, yeah.
Yeah. Very smelly crowd. Oh my God. Also, that director, he must have shut down Marvel. Because did you see those two reports back to back?
Oh, yeah.
It was like it was like the first, I think Deadline reported sometime towards the end of last week. It was like multiple US studios were trying to meet with him, the director of this movie. Because like I said, I mean, it's very Spielberg, like crowd appealing shit. And then the next day it was like, he met with Kevin Feige. And then the day after that, they're like, oh yeah, no, he's doing another Godzilla movie.
Yeah. Couldn't tempt him away.
No.
But yeah, I'm glad we have you here for this one, Clemmer. Tarantino said he refuses to watch the new Dune movies. He said, I saw David Lynch's Dune a few times. I don't need to see that story again. I don't need to see spice worms. I don't need to see a movie that says the word spice so dramatically. What do you think of your boy Tarantino hating Shai Hulud?
So I see both sides here. I completely agree with his overall philosophy on remakes and reboot. The remakes especially are just like, what are we doing here? Stop doing this. Got to make an exception for Dune. I mean, these movies are fantastic. And they're really Dune. If you watch the David Lynch Dune, it's a failed movie. It's flawed. It has problems with it. Like my issue is when you remake classics. Like why? Like the movie's great on its own. Why do we? But Dune, the '84 Dune kind of stinks. Like this is a much better.
David Lynch hates it.
Yeah, like I think I understand Tarantino's overall philosophy, but I'm a little disappointed when I read it, honestly, because I feel like I like to think he's more open-minded about cinema and stuff. And the fact that he's like, all right, this is a movie that's been nominated for like Best Picture. Dune 2's probably gonna get nominated, right, for Best Picture.
Yeah.
Like these are unquestionably works of art. Now you might say you don't like them, that's fine. Not for you, that's a taste issue. But they're unquestionably good, well-made movies. Like I don't like Lord of the Rings, right? But those were well-made movies. I accept that. I tip my hat to that. Like Tarantino should be seeing these movies. But no one's perfect.
Yeah, I do. I'm with you in that. Like, I'm surprised he's not more open-minded. But at the same time, like, I feel like his mentality has never been like a very gracious one. You know what I mean? He's always just like, I like what I like, and I don't like what I don't like. And if you hate me for that, I don't really care.
Yeah, but I feel like he gives shit a chance. Like
I agree.
I think everyone is entitled. If you pay money to a movie, this kind of pissed me off with the Barbie stuff too. Like, if you pay money to go see a movie, you should have an opinion on it. Now, even if you're a guy or a girl, if you see Barbie, like if you pay money, if you spend your time watching it, you can have an opinion on it. I believe very strongly. Mm-hmm. And so, but I think the idea of like I'm just not going to see it. Well, then all right, then you're not entitled to opinion. Just shut the fuck up. Honestly.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's a
Tarantino. I mean, yeah, no, the quote. I get his sentiment, just like Klemmer. Like I understand the sentiment, but at some point you do need to like just maybe listen to people. If everyone's saying it's good and it's like a different reimagining and completely different from Lynch's Dune and even the Dune miniseries and all that stuff, maybe just give it a shot. I know we talked about like Luca Guadagnino doing the American Psycho remake, and how his Suspiria remake completely different than the original Suspiria. Like I think when there's new adaptations of pre-existing material, as long as it's completely separate from the previous adaptation, like go right ahead, like do that, especially with great source material like Dune. Tarantino he just likes it. I think this is the Star Trek fandom in him too. Maybe he hates Dune, hates the other sci-fi franchises, and talking about that, actually, he was going to do a Star Trek movie at different points in his career, and he would have definitely been doing like Wrath of Khan, like he would have been doing shit over again in his own way, I'm sure, but he would have been doing old Star Trek storylines. So Tarantino, chill.
I mean, you think you'd be making a Star Trek movie that didn't mention like Picard or Kirk or like one of these like big things? Like it would have absolutely mentioned that. And if like Scorsese was like, yeah, I already saw Star Trek 3, The Quest for Peace, I'm not gonna go watch this one. You know what I mean? Like he'd be like, what the fuck? I'm doing a whole different thing here.
And no one does more homages than Tarantino did.
Yeah.
Like if you break apart his movies, you see so many like hat tips, which is I think a cool thing. Like it's a cool. You can tell how much he goes cinema. He's kind of doing like, hey, a little appreciation for X, Y, and Z. So I don't know. He's also I mean, like I said, nobody's perfect.
Half his movies are titles or homages to other movies. Like that's the
even the fonts they use.
Yeah,
like Jackie Brown or Pulp Fiction or like those Django Unchained. Django is a character from a 70s
Hateful Eight,
film.
And then he has Django
from
he has the Django actor show up in Django.
Yeah.
Yes, which is nice. That's good. It's like I think you might be onto something, Gooch, where he is a huge Trekkie, and maybe that is some sort of like weird rivalry.
Yeah.
By the way, did you see the Ridley Scott quote this morning?
Yeah, where he's like, I don't believe that shit.
Just like, shut up and dribble. Shut up and make another movie.
Shut up, make another movie, asshole. Which I will say, there are very few actors or directors in Hollywood that could say that to Tarantino. Ridley Scott's one of them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's one of the few people I don't think respect this either about Ridley Scott. Like he does not like I don't give a shit type of director. Like I'm going to make what I make. If you like it, that is great. If you don't, I don't care.
He's also 87 years old.
Yeah, he's old.
What 87-year-old gives a fuck about anything?
Yeah.
That's the way to live life, right? Like why people should care less anyway. But like why should he give a fuck? He's super successful. He's super accomplished. He's 87.
Yeah. It does remind me of like those old like Orson Welles quotes when like he got like halfway through his career and just like he had an opinion on every director and they were almost always negative opinion. He couldn't help himself. He would just like get questions like, what do you think about the weather today, Orson? He'd just be like, John Carpenter, what the fuck was that?
Scott's like a fascinating director too. I don't know if you've ever seen like him working behind the scenes. He's like he started out as an artist. So like he meticulously storyboards every single shot he makes. Like I think I was watching behind the scenes of him making Raised by Wolves, which is like a pretty solid sci-fi show from a couple years ago. And like he's sitting there on the set, like drawing out like with very like insane detail every single scene that they wanted to shoot. Is cool.
This also just reminded me. I did watch a Scott Tarantino movie last night.
Oh, or True Romance?
No, Crimson Tide.
Crimson Tide.
Right.
Wow.
He did rewrites on it. Yep.
Yeah.
I was thinking Tony Scott.
Yeah, that sounds like a Tony Scott.
A little bit of a draft.
It is Tony Scott.
Yeah. Yes. And speaking of good race movies, which you were mentioned before, one of the all-time Days of Thunder from Tony Scott.
Did you know, by the way, in that same interview, not to get stuck on this Ridley Scott talk, but Ridley said that they asked him to direct Maverick.
Top Gun Maverick, it would have been awesome. It wouldn't have, maybe not as awesome as it turned out to be, but it would have still been really good, I would bet.
Yeah.
At least to me. But anyway, now we can talk about the movie of the day, which is Juror number 2. Clint Eastwood movie. Family man Justin Kemp, who, while serving as the juror in a high-profile murder trial, finds himself struggling with a serious moral dilemma when he could use to sway the jury in the verdict and potentially convict or free the wrong killer. Nicholas Hoult, Toni Collette. Nice putting on your Judge Judy shirt. Toni Collette, J.K. Simmons, Kiefer Sutherland, Zoe Deutsch. So Juror number 2, again, we just saw it recently. It got, like, I would say, from the reception I saw, I didn't see really a negative word about it. The only negative things I saw was the fact that they tried to take it out of theaters so quickly and weren't playing it in any theaters. Like, this was, I think we mentioned it recently, they were playing it in more theaters in France than they were playing in here, like total, which is insane for a Clint Eastwood movie. Just play that during the matinees. The olds will fill the theaters for at least a month straight. So don't
open in 31 theaters.
Crazy.
31. And this isn't like a limited, this wasn't like, oh, they're going to expand. That was the release.
Yeah. And I don't get it.
This is a good movie. This is a good movie. This is his best movie, in my opinion, since Sully. This is a good movie.
And especially if you're like pissed, like, oh, Cry Macho didn't perform or whatever the other one he made, like, oh, this didn't perform. Like, this is obviously a very different type of movie. Like, this is very, very different. And like people they come out to the theaters, especially old, for a procedural movie like this. So I don't get that.
And it's such an easy sell. Yeah. Clint Eastwood's likely, maybe he doesn't want to, I don't think he's committed to saying it's his last movie yet, but he's 94 years old. He's got nothing else lined up right now. It's likely going to be his last movie. It is such an easy sell to the olds to get him out to theaters. And this is one of those things where I'm sure like the analytics don't like account for it, but like olds will just go out and do things. Like they will go to the theater to see Clint Eastwood's final movie. And I'm sure like the online presence isn't there to tell you that, but they exist like in the real world. The olds would have loved this.
Yeah, our theater was like, we were the youngest people in our theater by a generation, I would say. All right, Klemmer.
Yeah, yes, we were. So you guys are right about the olds and everything. I get all that. This is just, I think this is, I'm convinced Saslov just hates Clint. I think this is like an inside job that like Warner Brothers is trying to fuck over.
Which is fucked because he built that goddamn studio.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, think about all the successes Warner Brothers had with him. So you have this new guy come in that is just pissing everybody off left and right, and he does Clinton dirty here, and it's bullshit. And this is, like I said, this isn't. I wouldn't be sticking up for this movie. Like, I didn't really love The Mule. I didn't really love Richard Jewell. I know a lot of people did. I didn't. And that's fine. I just didn't quite hit for me. But I really like this movie a lot. This deserves to be seen by a lot of people. And we say olds, and I get it. Clint Eastwood's old, old people there, and Kenjac's right. There were shitload of old people in this theater.
I don't even mean it from a Clint perspective, by the way. I mean it from like, they love courtroom movies. Like, they love Clint, but they also love courtroom movies. They love procedural movies. They will come to the theater for that.
But I think even saying procedural, which you're right, it is like in theory, but it almost like simplifies it. This is a movie that has like, it's a movie for grown-ups. It's a movie that asks tough questions, does not give you easy answers, it does not hold your hand. It doesn't tell you how to feel. And, you know, we can like shit, and I know you guys aren't, but like people can shit on like old audience members all they want, but like I respect any audience that doesn't need to have their hand held during a movie. And I feel like this movie doesn't do that at all, and I really respect it.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Maybe we could get into it a little bit. Like, the movie basically revolves around whether or not the juror, which is Nick Hoult, whether or not he is the one that killed the person that the other guy's on trial for. They think that it's the boyfriend that killed the girlfriend, but Nick Hoult think it might have been him. Without giving a much more spoilers, because that's all in the trailers and everything too. I think that this movie was, like we talked earlier, I think it was Beetlejuice, we were mentioning like the Mendoza line thing. Like, I think this is like just above like that Mendoza line for like good movie. Like it's just above that. Like, everything about it does everything. It's like, it kind of, in my mind, like Jack of all trades, masters of none, maybe. Like, everything, it does everything well. I don't think there's anything in this movie where I was like, wow, that right there was exceptional. Like, I don't think there's anything like that I would point out, other than I think keeping the audience in a morally gray area. where like, what would you do? And like that, I think is the one area where this is in that you get, that's a very obviously central theme of it. I think that part of it, he weaves Clint Eastwood, this like weaves that very well. Outside of everything else, I'm like, you have Nick Holt, you have J.K. Simmons, you have Zoe Deutsch, you have Kiefer Sutherland, you have Toni Collette. I don't think any of them give like a banner performance, right? I wouldn't say it'd be like their top 20 performances for either any of their careers or anything like that. They're all
quite good. I mean, she's good in everything. But
I think she was good. But like, I don't watch that performance. I'm like, wow, Toni Collette really swayed me here, or like Chris Messina like really swayed me here, or like, I don't think that any of them did anything, nor were they asked to. Is part of the thing too. Like they weren't. None of them were asked to do anything other than normal.
I thought Zoe Deutsch was fantastic.
We'll talk a little bit about Zoe Deutsch's character in a little bit in spoiler section, I think. But yeah, I think everything was good, and I really like how we get kept in the moral gray area, sort of like all the way towards the end. Shot really well, some cool sequences as far as like weaving in flashbacks and like unreliable narrator.
That's where I think it was done well. It's something that was done very well, and that's the storytelling. I think this is a more complicated story because there are a few different characters. You're kind of looking at it from like a couple of different like point of views. It changes to like Toni Collette's kind of like the point of view of her character, and then it'll shift over to Holt a little bit. It's mostly Holt's movie, but it does kind of shift a little bit. And you're never confused. You're never kind of thrown for a loop. And I think every single character acts the way that seems natural. It seems like they would act that way. They act like human beings. They're not acting to make the scripts go further. They're acting like real people do. So I think from a storytelling technique, I think that was done very well, almost excellent. I like this movie, I think, a little more than you did. I think it's quite a bit above the Mendoza line for me. Like this was a much better movie than Beetlejuice. This is a movie I'll think about. This is a movie that will stick with me. This was a movie that was so much more intelligent. Beetlejuice was fine, but I think you're right.
So Beetlejuice was different Mendoza line. That was Mendoza line for what is a good late reimagining or remake or late sequel. That was a different one for versus generally good movie for me anyway.
This is, I think, clearly a very good, I don't want to say very good.
See, that's what I'm saying. Is like I would never clarify. I would never say like, oh my god.
Yeah, I know I'm being like it's semantics. I'm
very good, quite good.
It's not very good. It's just underneath. Okay. And I just saw a movie. I'm not going to go into because I don't know you guys have seen it, but like Goodrich with Michael Keaton.
Yeah,
that was right there too. And another adult movie, doesn't hold your hand, sort of somewhat gray, not as gray as this morally, but there is some like the character's very flawed, but he's like a good person. You're like, all right, like you kind of want to root for him, even though he fucks up all the time. But like it's right there. Like they're both, and you know what's nice? Going to see a fucking quite good movie. It's a good feeling. It's worth your time. It's worth your money. It's a great thing. And fuck Warner Brothers for keeping this out of theaters.
Mm-hmm. Gooch?
Yeah, no. And by the way, I'm the only person dressed for court today. Yeah, you guys show up looking like slobs. I don't know who raised you, but
sorry.
No, this was I agree.
I'm showing up for a different type of court, to be fair.
It's not great. Oh, there we go. There we go.
That was good. All right, you just got owned. I'm sorry, you're going to jail now.
That's kind of what happened in this movie.
Yeah.
But I'm with you all. It's not in the great territory, but it is good. The story is definitely the strength. I think in the hands of a lesser director, you are completely thrown out of this movie at multiple points because you have to make quite a few leaps of faith or suspensions of disbelief. There are, a few spots where you're just like, maybe that wouldn't work. But the movie just keeps churning and churning and churning and keeping your like mind spinning and guessing what's going to come next. Like who's guilty, who's actually guilty here. How's this going to play out? Like you are thinking that throughout the movie. It's never quite revealed to you. Nicholas Hoult is really, really great in this. I'll give him the great status. You said there's not a great thing in this movie, a phenomenal thing in this movie. I think Nicholas Holt's acting is really, really good here. And the supporting cast, I would stick with you there. They're fine. They turn in performances you'd expect.
So I think we can talk a little bit about spoilers here. So if you haven't watched it, make sure to skip forward. There are a couple of things that I think weren't like maybe Clint showing his age. We talked a bit. First of all, him thinking like magazine editor is a viable job is kind of funny. Like, yeah, I write for a magazine or a regional lifestyle magazine, and I own like a 5-room house. Like, I don't know about that one, Clint. Like her Googling like Jane Smith wife and him showing up like 18 times. Very funny Clintism right there, thinking that's the thing. And a lot of like making like old people rule, young people are dumb and looking at their phones type shit. Where it's
a lot of young people are dumb.
No,
And
that's a fact.
not
That's
every
a
old
fact.
person's smart, but like I also think I don't know. Like we spend, I think, as a culture, we spend a little too much time putting young people on a pedestal. I don't mind seeing one that kind of kicks them off a little. And
Yeah.
I see that as a younger. I know I'm old in our world, but in the real world, I'm on the younger side. And like, certainly 40 years younger than these people we're at the theaters with. But I don't mind once in a while. You're right. Sometimes it got a little silly with that old lady telling the fat kid he's stoned.
Yeah. That's like, it's just Clintisms, you know what I mean? And that's fine. That part, that was not like a huge negative or anything like that to me. And I think as far as like in the spoiler things where I was a little bit more me thrown off, you mentioned Zoe Deutsch before, her being more upset that her husband potentially had a drink than that he murdered someone with his car was kind of like, well, what does she not still not understand what's happening? That was the only scene where I was kind of like, does she not get it? What happened here? Because she talks to him and like he basically admits like, yeah, I was on that road. The DA was here. I probably killed this girl. And she's like, but you drank? It's like, that should not be the big issue here. That should not be the problem here. And I feel like that's one scene where it will flip me a little bit. But other than that, I do love how it ended, keeping it ambiguous. And
I love that too.
We mentioned it a little bit leaving the theater. I'm not entirely sure if that was like the intention the entire way, or they're like, we don't totally know how to end this right. So if you just leave it ambiguous, it's actually kind of like works better. But either way, I do like how that ended a lot. And I just opening that door like after you think everything's okay, because like I feel like they kind of give you 3, maybe 4 false endings in that last act where you're like, oh, this is the end. Nope, that's the end. So I did enjoy the ending a lot.
I will say, my issue is there's no way he goes to sentencing.
Idiot.
Like, why? Like why? Like, and also like Zoe. I will say the Zoe Deutsch character is terrible. Like she's a nice actress. Nothing. It's just the character's written very badly. And like, wouldn't you stop your husband? And be like, actually, don't go to that. That puts you in a really bad spot. Like, what are you doing? He's like, I got to see it out. Like, no, you don't, man. Like, stay home. I do think though, like, there's no. For me, the more I thought about it, there's no question how the movie ends. Like, obviously, she's going to ask him to make some sort of deal and probably serve some jail time. Like, there's no other reason she'd be at the house.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what, they're going to have like cook coffee? Like, why else is she there?
Yeah,
but isn't that like perfectly fitting into like Clint's entire filmography? I mean, I know he's kind of gotten away from it recently a little bit, but like just like man can't outrun his past. Like that is Clint's like motive through like his best works. So it was nice seeing him get back to that.
That's a great call, Gooch. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, enjoyed that quite a bit. But yeah, I liked it. I think more people would enjoy it if they went to see it, especially if you're you might not, probably it's not in your local theater if you're watching there listening to this. But if you were looking for a movie to watch, you could do way worse than Juror number 2. I think all 3 of us enjoyed it a lot.
So some news about that since we saw it.
Did extend, right?
I texted Kirk about it because Kirk loves Clint Eastwood. I'm like, you got to see this movie. It's only in 31 theaters. He's like, actually, they're going to have it for a second week release, and they're expanding it to 46 theaters now, which...
Oh, nice.
But at least they're taking... Because I know the original plan was they're going to run for 1 week, which, by the way, is insane. By the way, usually movie theaters have to commit to a movie for at least 2 weeks before they take it. So they did it 1 week is like such a slap in the face. And then the plan was to release it on Max in December.
Okay.
So I guess they're changing that up, and they're going to at least have it for another week. Hopefully it does well again. Because I will say, our theater, there were a lot of olds, but there were also a lot of fucking people. Yeah. Like for a 4 o'clock, a matinee showing, that's pretty good.
They all clapped.
My theater was full. Too. Yeah. My theater was completely full.
Mm-hmm. People like Clint. He's still a fucking, like, you're talking about star power name. He's still got it.
He's like the guy. Like he's a Mount Rushmore Hollywood guy. Like,
who's had a better, this is a Kirk question, but one I agree with. Who's had a better career in Hollywood than Clint Eastwood? If you factor everything in, direction.
No, I'm with you. Like it is. He's
all separate levels of Hollywood. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you combine it all, like who's had a better career? It's tough to come up with many names.
It's tough, especially from a even beyond highs and lows, just like a longevity standpoint, like being able to continue to do it for this long. Like even like what was Unforgiven his first directing job? I forget.
No, Two Mules for Sister Sarah, I think was his first one.
But like if you think about the fact that he didn't start directing until he's at least in his 40s, like he
he got a late start as an actor, even
just as an actor too. Yeah. So like the fact he did that, and he's directed multiple like very, very good movies, and was still acting in half of them, and he's like fucking 90 years old. Like, it's crazy.
And he wrote the score for some of them.
Yeah,
insane. And I remember we interviewed Ryan Phillippe, right? Phillippe, and he was talking about he was on Letters from Iwo Jima, And he was saying like how they would go to the set, like they'd all be taking like a fucking chop or whatever, and they would just see like at that point, I guess like 85-year-old Clint Eastwood hiking up the hills to get up to the volcano for the shoot that day. Just crazy, just an absolute and total workhorse.
It's so crazy. Like this, I thought about this. So you can probably speak to this even more than I can, Kenjac. But you guys had Mike Francesa on the stream, for the Yankee stream, and Francesa is basically the same age as my dad. I grew up in the same town as my dad, a couple years younger. My dad's been gone forever, but the same age as my uncle and stuff. My uncle is like kind of in tough shape right now, like, and it's like 70's pretty old. But then Francesa was so sharp. He was so focused on the game. His memory was so sharp, and I was like really impressed with Francesa on the stream with you guys. And then I was watching the movie. I'm like, Eastwood's old enough to be Francesa's dad, and he's directing a good movie. How fucking insane is this? Like how old? Like it puts into context how old these guys are. It's like Eastwood's more than twice my age, and he's making a good movie. Like what a credit to him, man. That's incredible.
He was like your age when he was making like the good, the bad, and the ugly, dude. It's crazy. Yeah. That's how old he is. Like.
This was like 5 years ago now, but I remember there was this story about like how he's just still on like studio lot like every single day and like in his own like personal office, but there like every single day you can find him whenever. His door is apparently just always open, and he's got like a team of squirrels that comes to visit him, and he just feeds them out of his hand. Crazy, but like
it's like a fairy tale.
Yeah, I know. He's I love him. I was actually down a rabbit hole on his Wikipedia the other day. Just such a life, which, by the way, he has his own Wikipedia page just for his children.
Yeah.
He has
like 1,000 kids, man. Yeah. It's crazy.
It's the walk hard bit. It's like he's got 90 kids at the end of the movie. It's that. It's so funny.
We've heard Scott before. It is crazy.
He also was a mayor of a town, Carmel, California, during this stretch of filming. I cannot say enough things about how amazing Clint Eastwood's career is. And if this is the end, that's very sad. Like you said, I didn't know he didn't have anything else attached. That kind of bums me out when you said that. But like, if this is the end, this is a fine movie to end a career on, because this is a fine, quite good movie.
The thing about Clint, though, all he needs to be is like attached to a project. He'll have it done in like 3 months.
Oh yeah, under budget, under schedule. Yeah,
under budget, on time.
Yeah,
I will say this movie, and you see with Clint movies, I call it the Clint sloppiness a little bit, where it's one take Clint. So like there are some scenes that probably could have been shot a little better, but I'm really nitpicking here. Like this is a very.
No, I think it's a very awesome thing that he continues to do that, because I do agree with like there is a method to the madness of only doing the one take. Like his you're gonna get like the most real reaction. You're gonna get the most real performance on that first take. Like
it always depends on the actor. I think back to like Gran Torino, where those kids were not very good actors, and like the 1 or 2 take really did them a disservice. But then you think about $1 Million Baby, you got Hilary Swank, Morgan Freeman. They only need one take, and they knock it the park. And it does feel, like you said, more natural, more emotive.
It feels more like almost like a documentary, like you're watching it happen in real time. You know what I mean? Like their actual genuine reaction. Although sometimes I would agree with in the Gran Torino sense, it comes off more as bad acting and more natural. But in this case, I think it was good. And I feel like it's been a while since we'd seen like a good court movie.
Right.
And I feel like there's been plenty of attempts. Do you remember the trial of the Chicago 7? I was so pumped for that. I was like, oh, Sorkin doing a movie with all these big names, a cool story. It's dog shit.
Sorkin just doing boomer lib shit for 2 hours. That was bad.
I thought it was going to be good, though.
That was one of the most disappointing movies of this decade. And I say that with no hyperbole. I was so looking forward to that movie, and that movie sucked ass. That movie stunk. And like you said, Gooch, you're exactly right. It was boomer lib porn. That's exactly what it was. And it was atrocious. And I don't even mean it politically. Oh, one last thing about this movie I want to say. You want to see a movie that's not going to lecture you politically on either side. This movie's a really good case of that. I would recommend seeing this movie, because it doesn't. I don't feel like it lectured us either way. It was a perfect. If you're kind of sick of politics, sick of the election season, and this movie's playing in your theater, go check it out for sure.
Yeah, we saw it on election day, ironically.
We did.
Okay,
it was a nice I don't know, like refreshing, like breath of fresh air a little bit. Like, all right, and you can go back and watch election stuff. But it was nice to kind of like, oh, all right.
Yeah, we got out and we talked about the movie for like, I feel like 10 minutes, and then we're on the subway for a while. And like, oh yeah, the election. Forgot about that. Yep. Like, it was just a nice little disconnect. But yeah, that's Juror number 2. We liked it. Now we're going to do an interesting exercise. It's going to be a draft of 90s blockbusters. So a draft of movies, and I'm going to show it up on screen. All of the movies have to be within the top 10 domestic grossing of the year. Some of them had to be moved around a little bit. Like there were some that are like repeats, like a movie that came out late 92 would be in the top of 93. I try to remove as many of those as possible. I might have just like one or two, but for the most part, they are unique entries. We'll start out. Gooch, you have the first pick. I have the second pick. Klemmer, you have the third pick, and then we'll snake back 5 picks each. There are a bunch of movies here to choose from. Again, the top 10-ish of the domestic highest grossing movies from 1990 to 1999. Gooch, first pick. Which one are you going with?
Wow, first pick. I was hoping for this. And I don't know if you guys would have taken this first overall, but I do think it is, if not the best, the most important movie out of the 90s in terms of how it affected the industry, and that is The Matrix. The Matrix is a 5-star movie. Rewatched it about a month ago, so this could be recency bias at play. But damn, does it just hold up well? The themes, the motives in it also just play perfectly. Performances, it's so iconic throughout. It is one of the movies, in my opinion. Like, it will play in every single montage you ever see about Hollywood from now to the end of time. Like, it is the movie. And who was it? Harry Styles. Going full Harry Styles mode.
Oh, yeah.
It is a true movie.
It's a movie.
It's a movie.
Movie. I thought the way you described that, I thought you were going for a different movie. But I won't tip the pick there. I agree with you. The Matrix, obviously one of the most important of the 90s, even going into like influencing all the sci-fi that came out from like the early 2000s too. So influential there. And it's so funny too, because like the Wachowskis, it is not their original thought. They just ripped it out straight, one for one rip of all the anime that came out of like the 90s into or 80s into 90s. Especially we always talk about like the Ghost in the Shell and Akira. Like just one for one rip. They're almost like just like the first person to discover the gold ore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they were just like the first prospectors on the scene, and it worked out great for them because they also knew how to exploit the technology end of it. Because other movies, ironically, like Johnny Mnemonic with Keanu Reeves, tried to do the same thing, but they didn't know how to do it.
The only movie I ever walked out of in my entire life.
That was a bad movie. No good. But Matrix is off the board. Now my pick, looking at these, there is one that I think is to me one of not only a definitive blockbuster, but it's just an iconic movie, one of the best sequels ever made. That is T2. I will always go to bat for T2. It is one of my favorite movies of the 90s. I love it. Everything about it, top to bottom, never stops. The actors across the board, like Schwarzenegger changing from like I would say way more just kind of a non-factor acting wise from the first one for the most part, other than being an imposing figure, to being like kind of a real character in T2. Even Linda Linda Hamilton getting like shredded for this role, looking amazing. The kid who unfortunately
Edward Furlong.
Yeah, Kid Ed Furlong didn't have a great rest of career, but like he in this movie was fantastic.
Robert Patrick as the cop is
dude. Patrick, do the running. He taught himself how to shoot without blinking. Like the gunplay stuff in this is awesome. The minigun, like the all the gunfight stuff. The actual T-1000, like the way that it worked, like mimicking the other people, killing shit. Like we mentioned, I think earlier, I forget what for, but the scene where like they calls their foster parents' house. And he's like, your foster parents are dead. Like, and like he mimics the voice. But like the scene where the guy is talking to, not knowing he's talking to the T-1000, and she's like, you just don't see it on screen. You just hear the thud. And like you look and you just see like that fucking blade through his throat. Like that shit's so cool, so scary. Such like an interesting way to advance the story of the Terminator. Because like what's scarier than a fucking skull robot that wants to come and kill you? That looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Oh, one that's liquid metal. Like it's just everything about it is so cool. I love T2, so easy pick for me.
And I want to throw it in there. I think it's James Cameron expertly, like maybe more than any other movie made me understand as a kid, like the fear of the fucking Cold War. Like I was terrified of the apocalypse. The way he shoots those like huge, bombastic, like the bombs exploding scenes, whereas the Linda is, melting on the fence looking at her children. Like that shit scared me to death as a kid, maybe even more than the robot. Like
super, super scary. Klemmer, did you see that in theaters?
I did not see T2 in theaters.
I imagine that would have been a great one.
My dad loved the movie. My dad might have been sick. My dad was sick. My dad passed away in 94. He got diagnosed cancer in 90. So 1994, you can find like times where I saw a ton of movies and times where like I didn't see any, and that was I think he might have been because I remember watching it at home with him. We rented it, and he loved it, and he loved Terminator 1. So and he loved James Cameron. So
yeah,
great movie. Klemmer, you have back to back.
So I'm going to pick my favorite movies, not the ones I think are quote unquote the best blockbusters. I think that's a different discussion. So these are movies that I like the most at this list. Is that okay, or is that my?
I think that's fine.
Okay. My number one pick is going to be Good Will Hunting. I love this movie so much. I did see this in theaters. The scene with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon talking about the construction site, and Ben Affleck says, if you stay here in this neighborhood for the next 20 years, I'm going to kill you. Like, you have to do better. You have to better yourself. That is like the ultimate sign of friendship, I think, that you care so much about your friend that even though you love his company so much, you're willing to let him go. I love that scene so much. I love the relationship with Matt Damon and Robin Williams. Robin Williams' best performance. It's a beautiful, beautiful movie that I love and I never get tired of.
So good.
Such a good movie. And so, I mean, even like we mentioned those scenes, like those scenes I think are better than like the how about these apples, like shit like that. Like I think it's quoted more. Like so many good scenes in that. It's not your fault. Like the whole discovering that he's the one that wrote it on the board. Like so many great scenes in the movie.
Just that the dinner scene between Robin Williams and Stellan Skarsgård. Fantastic when they first meet and they haven't spoken in years. So good. The fact that what were they, 19 when they wrote that, 20? Like they were still in class, right? Like
they were kids, they wrote it, and then
it almost makes no sense how children would be able to, write stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's incredible, and it's funny. It wouldn't have got made if Matt Damon wasn't in The Rainmaker, which is not on this list.
Yeah, believe it or not,
it's actually a pretty fine movie. But he did a movie with Francis Ford Coppola, The Rainmaker, and when they heard that, they finally greenlit Good Will Hunting.
Yeah, you back to back.
Yeah, next pick is Silence of the Lambs. Silence of the Lambs is really interesting. Obviously won Best Picture, huge blockbuster, but it came out in February of that year. We had this happen with Everything Everywhere All at Once. That came out in February. Like, it's so rare to have an Oscar winning a Best Picture come out in 11 months earlier.
Sweep.
The last sweep in Oscar history. We have screenplay, actor, writer, director, and actress. And Best Picture, obviously. A fantastic movie. Obviously, Anthony Hopkins. Once again, it's overly quoted, but it's those little scenes, like when Jodie Foster is talking to Anthony Hopkins about the lambs and about childhood and about how troubling it was and the suspense, and you're always filled with this dread. Really, from the second the movie starts, when the FBI guys are running in the woods, you're filled with dread the entire time. Silence of the Lambs is one of the greatest directing jobs ever, and Jodie Foster is I think she's even better than Anthony Hopkins in this. Anthony Hopkins is fantastic.
The night vision sequence that's like inspired. That is such a cool scene. Unbelievable.
Jonathan Demme this is his greatest work, obviously. He followed this up with Philadelphia, which doesn't quite land. Everything, great performance by Tom Hanks, but this is his, and he did
Stop Making Sense. He did Stop Making Sense, didn't he? He did that. The Talking Heads.
Yes, he did. He also did Something Wild with who's in that? Ray Liotta. That's a very good movie. You haven't seen Something Wild? I think it came out 87. I think it's on Criterion. It's very good. But Silence of the Lambs is the next movie. Demi's a genius, but Silence of the Lambs is great.
All right, Silence of the Lambs off the board. For mine, I think it's easy for me to just go chalk and say Jurassic Park, because I think T2 and Jurassic Park, I'm getting two of the best blockbusters of like all time on my list. I will definitely do that, and I think that Jurassic Park is one that, like, especially after watching the Netflix series Movies That Made Us, like seeing the behind the scenes of how the Jurassic Park got made and how they were originally going to do like these big animatronics and like these things that they didn't look good, and how like basically at the buzzer they found out that they could do CGI that looked semi-realistic, and like they were able to make these big giant sweeping scenes. I loved it. It horrified me. It was such a cool, and obviously it's not like Spielberg invented the concept, it's based off the book, but like it was such a cool concept. As a kid, when you watch it, and I didn't watch it in 93, I was not born, or the year I was born. Later on in life of watching it, it was horrifying, so scary. The T-Rex scene where it's pushing around the car, all the raptors. I had such an irrational fear of raptors, and something that will never affect my life ever. I was so afraid of raptors and any sort of dinosaur coming back just because of that movie. Loved it. Loved every actor top to bottom in it. And I mean, you want to talk about an actor, I think that has had a very underrated or underappreciated career. Sam Neill
Yes.
Sam Neill has had a great career, and I feel like it kind of goes underrated because like, you'll see him randomly show up in like he was not Crimson Tide. He was in one of the submarine movies.
Hunt for Red October.
I think it might have been Hunt for Red October. Like he'll just show up in a movie and he'll be excellent. And like even in Hunt for the Wilder People, he was excellent.
Yeah.
And Peaky Blinders, he was amazing. So many great performances from Sam Neill, and I think this is one of them. Obviously, not like a top tier or anything like that. Dern as well, Goldblum, looking all sexy, Newman. Like so many great characters in this, and I just love Jurassic Park. And
I gotta add, Goldblum, he becomes a caricature of himself in the later entries, but he is very fucking good at that first one.
Yeah,
really good.
I think he should have been nominated for an Oscar. I think it was that good of a performance. I saw this in the theaters, and it's one of the 10 greatest movie theater experiences of my life. I was 13, and you got to understand that at that time we hadn't really seen true CGI. Now, T2 had come out, obviously, and a movie called The Abyss had come out a few years earlier that Cameron did. This was the first time it felt so real. Like the T2 stuff was amazing, but you never really felt like it was real. Like, you know what I mean? Like, liquid metal, but like, this felt like you were seeing dinosaurs to the point where Good Morning America, these morning shows had things saying like, could this happen? Was this, did they, people asked, because before the internet, people asked, did they somehow create dinosaurs? People thought that this was real. It was beautiful, and you said terrifying. This was on my list of my top 5 easily. I love this movie so much. It's brilliantly done. It's Spielberg's. I think this is a better movie than Schindler's List. He had both come out the same year. Imagine the year for him. Those movies the same year. That's incredible. He was editing Schindler's List while he was shooting this.
By the way, you was talking about an excellent score.
Yeah, or vice versa, maybe. He was editing Jurassic Park, but he was shooting Schindler's List.
You know something really cool too about Jurassic Park? I feel like and I'm just mentioning the score. The score is amazing, but like the fact that it really made you feel like you were in a brand new amusement park. Like they nailed the feel of an amusement park perfectly. All like the on track rides, like the little like side like things. Like man, that really felt like I as much as I was scared of the dinosaurs, I was like, damn, I want to go to Jurassic Park. I want to drive this cool ass Jeep Wrangler. I want to do all this stuff. And it obviously spawned a whole merch wave after that too. But man, it was cool.
That little DNA guy?
Yeah, the DNA guy. Yeah,
that's right out of a theme park.
Two of my favorite little moments, and then we'll move on to my pick. In Jurassic Park, and you just brought up the score. The score moment when they first get to the park, and it like they're pulling up onto that field in their little Jeep Wrangler, and it just stops, and then the camera just kind of zooms in on their faces. Score starts to swell, and then it flips around. It just shows them from behind in their car, and then you just see all the massive dinosaurs in the background. Yeah. Score just goes nuts. Crazy moment.
That's where he like turns her head, right? Like,
yes.
And she like, yeah.
Yes, and then it just immediately cuts to that. Oh, so good. And then the raptor sequence when they're in the kitchen, it's dark, and then the light comes through, and it's the DNA sequence lit onto the dinosaur. I don't know if you've seen that shot. One of the most genius things I've ever seen. But Jurassic Park, I knew I wasn't going to get it. After I didn't pick it first, but it was tough to watch it go right before I was up again.
All right, you're up.
All right, first one. I will take our first kids movie, our first animated feature off the board, but in my opinion, I think it is the best animated movie of all time, The Lion King. The Lion King is perfect. There's not a single thing I would change about it, from animation to the amazing, amazing songs by Alan Menken and Elton John, Hans Zimmer on the score, the voice performances, Jeremy Irons, Matthew Broderick, fantastic. And then just the story, a perfect adaptation of Hamlet for children, which makes no sense, but it works. It's so good. It is so perfect.
Great soundtrack and great, like as far as like animation style, like those Disney Renaissance movies where went like Little Mermaid to Aladdin to this, like it just looks great visually. Yeah. Very. The color, I don't know how to explain that. I guess like the color palette or whatever, like was so attractive as a kid. You know what I mean? Like it just really draws you in.
Well, looking back now, it's almost like looking back at like the children yearn for Technicolor. Like, it feels like that. Like it's like, how does it look so much better? It looks so good. So yeah, Lion King. And then next up, this is where it kind of maybe a little bit of a drop off for me at least, into a next tier. But I will go with one of Rob Reiner's classics from his run. We'll go A Few Good Men. Tom Cruise, Jack Nicholson, two giants going at each other. Fantastic. We talked about Sorkin wasn't full lib boomer yet. Fantastic, fantastic script. A great movie. One I haven't watched in a while, but I weirdly loved it as a kid.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant movie. Rob Reiner from 86 with Stand By Me until about this time, right? He was maybe the best director kind of working. Spielberg had a little bit of downside. He made a movie called Always with Richard Dreyfuss, didn't do particularly well. He was before 93, he was in a little bit of a downturn, a little bit. He did Hook, which didn't really work. Mm-hmm. Rob Reiner, it was a time for studios. Before Tarantino changed everything in 94, this was a time when studios rose. And Oliver Stone was the riskiest director, but Rob Reiner had the most hits: A Princess Bride, Misery,
Spinal Tap.
What's that?
Spinal Tap, I think, was right before the run.
But those three, though, were massive hits. Stand By Me is a massive hit.
Great run.
An incredible one that's kind of forgotten about. But Rob Reiner, at one point, he made a movie called North in 94. If you're looking for a funny review, read Roger Ebert's review of North. It is the funniest review you'll ever read. I think I sent it to you, Kenjac. It is the greatest thing ever. Rob Reiner was an amazing director. A Few Good Men was on my list. This is a fantastic choice, Gooch. And I know you said a tier below Lion King. Lion King is a very good cartoon. Very good. I saw it in the theaters. Very good. My sister is younger and she wanted to go, so we went. But A Few Good Men is one of the greatest films of all time.
Very, 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 very good movie, and iconic performances too, across the board. So A Few Good Men off the board. My next pick, I would go with tail end of it, but I would do Saving Private Ryan. I love everything about Saving Private Ryan, and we've talked about this, I think, even recently on the bracket. Like, you learn, I feel like, a lot more about it. Like, because when I watched that versus like a younger kid, I was like, fuck up him. This guy sucks. Fuck this guy. And then you watch this, and you're like, oh wow, this guy, like, he was a typewriter, and they dragged him in the middle of an armed conflict, World War II, and they had him doing all this shit. And I think if you look at like top to bottom all these acting sequences too, you get like some career best shit out of all these actors. Not even just Tom Hanks, who I think, like, you're talking, he gets, I feel like, especially in his last like 20-ish years of acting, he's had a lot of safer things. Like, he has some really gut-wrenching shit in Saving Private Ryan. Giovanni Ribisi, his like dying sequence is like heartbreaking. Even like Vin Diesel's death scene is like also so tough. Like, he's sitting there saying, like, I got blood on their note, man. Give it to my dad, please. And like the Paul Giamatti coming in out of nowhere, funny. Like,
Tom Sizemore, how good is he in this movie?
Dude, I think I remember reading once, like, Spielberg, like, basically forcing him to do like a drug test every day to keep the role, and he was unreal in it. Him going back and forth, I think it was not Ed Burns. Or was it Ed Burns? I forget.
Ed Burns is in this.
Is it Burns, right?
Yes.
Yeah, him going back and forth with him is so good. And then like Matt Damon showing up and ripping off that entire ad-libbed sequence about him and his brothers while they're waiting for the last final big battle. Everything about it's so good. And then, man, the crushing ending where he turns back into an old man and just like, tell me I'm a good man, tell me I lived a good life. It hits your heartstrings so heavily. Just a brutal movie. And I remember my dad telling me stories about like when he went to the theater to see it with his friend, and I think like they went with like in some big opening night thing, and like people were like leaving the theater in the beginning, and like veterans were like, what the fuck is this? Like, because it was like so realistic in the beginning, the whole Normandy sequence. It looks real. The authenticity is right there as far as like production goes. Like, they shot it, I think, the whole D-Day landing in Ireland, like, but everything looks legit, real, period accurate, big set pieces, big action. Everything about it is amazing. Great, fantastic movie.
I saw this in theaters as well. I don't know if I've ever heard a theater as quiet as when this movie ended, aside from some sniffles. But it was so quiet. And that opening scene in Normandy is still not only the greatest war sequence ever, you could argue it's the most impressive, terrifying, unbelievable opening sequence any movie ever. And I'm talking like Django Unchained. I'm sorry, not help me out.
Inglourious Bastards.
Inglourious Bastards is the great opening. But I put this right there with it. I mean, and it almost hurts the movie in a way where the opening is so amazing and so terrifying and so jarring that the rest of the movie has to struggle to keep up with it. It does, because this is a great movie, Kenjac. Like, I had this on my list too. But it's tough to keep up to that amazing opening. This is a fantastic film, and it should have won Best Picture. Fuck you, Harvey Weinstein, for so many things. But maybe last in that list is bullying voters to keep to have Shakespeare in Love.
Shakespeare in Love, man, it's unbelievable. So yeah, Saving Private Ryan for me. Klemmer, you have back to back.
All right, I'm gonna go with The Sixth Sense. This is a movie that has been quoted like the I see dead people. It's almost become kind of like a little bit of a joke, right? Or, among meme culture, even before that, honestly, because the movie was so successful. But the movie itself is so brilliant. I think the scene with Haley Joel Osment, who's giving the best performance by any kid actor ever, and Toni Collette in the car, and Haley Joel Osment says, "Oh, I saw your mom," and it's like, "Oh," and talks about how all Toni Collette wanted was her mom to be proud of her. And that scene makes me cry every time I see it. Watch right now, I'll start crying. Like, it is so powerful. Haley Joel Osment is so good. Bruce Willis is so good. Bruce Willis, the greatest actor who's never been nominated for an Academy Award. You can argue Kevin Bacon, you can argue Donald Sutherland, but for me, it's Bruce Willis. An amazing performance by everyone. M. Night Shyamalan, I don't know what quite happened to his career, but
hey, we like Trap.
Trap was okay.
Trap's okay. I mean, you think of The Sixth Sense and how brilliantly made it is and how much care is put into it and how lovely it is. And you think about The Trap, a movie that in its mid-end credit sequence makes fun of itself. I can't believe the same man made them.
Mm-hmm. It is shocking. It doesn't make almost no sense. Like, you go from that to like After Earth or whatever. Like,
yes. The Happening, where they're scared of the
we don't address his studio work. We don't address his studio work. Fantastic movie. But fun fact, I found out recently, producers wanted to take the I See Dead People line out of the movie.
That makes sense.
I know too, when it's shot, when he says it, it immediately goes over to Bruce Willis. Mm-hmm. And they thought they want to take that out, especially because but it telegraphs it. But I swear to God, so I saw this opening weekend, didn't really know much. I had some cool commercials going in. I didn't know the ending. And I was floored. The whole audience was. We were shocked. So it didn't telegraph it to me. I love this movie very much.
Thank God that didn't come out in the social media era, because that would have been like fucking LaShawn McCoy spoiling Endgame on crack. That would have been brutal. R.I.P. my dog, whatever Bruce Willis's character's name was, I don't remember.
Malcolm.
So Sixth Sense off the board. You have another one back to back.
That's two Dr. Malcolms. We had Dr. Malcolm in Jurassic Park too.
Yeah.
The next one is The Fugitive. Talk about a blockbuster. I think this kind of hits probably what you guys are looking for more from this. This is a perfect action movie. This is one of the greatest action movies ever. I think it's the greatest action movie of the 90s. You have, and it's funny, Andrew Davis directed this. He's probably most known for Under Siege other than this. Not a great director, but it works for this. This movie, it's timeless. It doesn't feel dated when you watch it now. Harrison Ford is incredible, never does too much. I love this movie. Great action movie.
I didn't kill my wife. I don't care.
Tommy Lee Jones, of course, you got the Oscar for, but I think Harrison Ford's just as good.
Who was his second in command? Tommy Lee Jones. Was it RDJ?
Joey Pants, right?
Is it RDJ or is that U.S. Marshal? That's U.S. Marshals. Yeah, good call. And it was like Wilford Brimley was the car driver or bus driver, I think, too. In Fugitive.
I think so. Not in Fugitive.
Or was it the dad from Grounded for Life? Not Wilford Brimley. It was the dad from Grounded for Life, who's in like a bunch of random shit in the 90s. But yeah, Fugitive, very, very, very good movie. Just cool too. I feel like anytime you get like a chase sequence, like a guy in the land that you can empathize with because he's at least a good guy, it's cool. Yeah.
And it's done so well. Like, it's so smart. Like, I know it's like little things, but like they show him shaving his beard. They show him trying to find clothes. They show him trying to find food, how he has to rent an apartment. Like, it goes through. It's very intelligently done. And Harrison Ford, like I said, I know he only got nominated for one Oscar his whole career. Like, I think he could have got a nomination for this too. Unfortunately, 93 was so stacked.
What did he get nominated for?
Was it
Witness?
I think so.
Witness would make sense. That was like, I feel like the one big critical darling. But yeah, so The Fugitive off the board. For my next pick, it's tough. I feel like I have a lot of very chalky movies that I love, but they're ones where they're very like I don't know. I don't have a lot of thought into mine, except for Saving Private Ryan. I feel like is more on that end where it's like a little more of like a critical, like you have to think about.
But that was all these movies are blockbusters. I'm telling you, I was alive for these. Like Dick Tracy was a blockbuster. It's not a good movie, but like, every movie here is a blockbuster. Blair Witch was a sensation when that came.
Yeah, I think for me, I would do. Man, just like looking through this list, there's so many good movies. There's someone here. I'm like, how the fuck is like TMNT 2 on this? And like, it makes sense.
I saw it in the theaters, man. Like, I was 11 years old and we went and saw it. We knew it wasn't good when after it was over, but we loved the first one.
I'll go with Mission Impossible. I love Mission. I think that it's not the best one in the series. I still Fallout blows it out of the water. Even I would say Dead Reckoning to a degree is right up there. Second or Ghost Protocol is really good. And my 2 and 2, not great. MI3 with J.J. Abrams, maybe the best villain out of the entirety of the franchise. When Philip Seymour Hoffman, he's so fucking good in that movie. But Mission Impossible 1, I think, is very, very good. It's a lot of good twists and turns, and cast was awesome. Jon Voight was like just such a in all these 90s movies, I feel like he plays a lot of the same character, just like that's kind of like shady, scummy dude, and it just fits with him well. And Tom Cruise, obviously, he's Tom Cruise, and he kills it. Everything he does in this movie is perfect. I think the entire sequence where they're getting the knock list out of Langley is so fucking cool. And so even when you watch it now, this movie's so old at this point. Like you watch it now, and like the scene where he's sitting there, letting the rope down, Jean Reno, and like the rat comes out, and like he slips for a bit, and it can't get hot. The drip of sweat can't come down. Okay. All these different things, so many really cool little details, and the twists and turns again throughout it are just perfect. I love Mission Impossible, and I'm perfectly fine having that in my top 5. Is that when you saw it in theater?
Yeah. I saw it with my mom, my stepdad, my sister. We all went out and we had a great time. It's like family. You got to figure what year did this come out? 96.
I believe 96. Yeah.
So I was like 16. You don't usually go with your parents. So I was like, fuck it, we'll go. We all had a great time.
Were you guys? Was it almost like a fake out where like you see like Emilio Estevez is on this cast? He must be a big part of this movie, and then like he gets killed early. Were you like, what the fuck?
Not only because like he wasn't like listed in the like he wasn't like I used to read this magazine called Entertainment Weekly that would come out, and it was kind of the movie Bible, that and a movie magazine called Premiere. Mm-hmm. And like you didn't see their names, like you knew Jon Voight was like, but you didn't see their names in the credits. I'm like, why wouldn't they have like these bigger stars in there? It didn't make any sense to me. So, but it was still shocking seeing them all get like knocked off in the first 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Great score too, Lauren Balfe, who went on to many other great ones. But yeah, Mission Impossible for me, Gooch, you have your last 2 picks.
So good. This is twice now that you've taken something I wanted.
Sorry.
I did want that Mission Impossible pick, but no, next pick I will go. A movie I watched for the first time last night. The first time, because when we were putting this, I'm looking through this list, I'm like looking at what I haven't seen. I hadn't seen this. Crimson Tide. Tony Scott, Tarantino, I don't think he's officially listed as the scriptwriter. Denzel versus Gene Hackman, and they are fucking fantastic in this movie going head to head. And Tony Scott shoots them perfectly, like these like 3/4 close-up shots that make them seem monumental. And the cinematography is just red and green and blue and black, like just those colors, nothing else. So good. It's great. No, fantastic. I'm very disappointed I'd never seen it up until last night. I loved it.
There's a big run of submarine movies, I feel like, in the 90s. Like they did that. They did what was it? Hunt for the Red October, K-19, The Widowmaker.
It's kind of a big span though. Like Hunt for Red October, I think that was 90, but like K-19 was like 2000. You know what I mean? It was like a bigger span than you might think.
Yeah. So also there was it U-571, but that must have been 2000.
That came out the same time as K-19. I remember those two being like rival sub movies.
Okay, I think that was 2000, so that would make sense. Yeah, that would make sense. Good. Submarine movies, I feel like that's such a cool market, like as far as like for storytelling. It's so claustrophobic. There should be more, to be frank, but I don't know. But yeah, Crimson Tide off the board, your last pick, Gooch.
Ooh, this is where it gets tough. I'm gonna take a movie. It's probably not the best movie on here. Definitely not, but to me it's pure 90s. So I will take it. It is Face Off.
Oh yeah.
Face Off is the pure unabashed bat-shittedness that the 90s blockbusters really drove home, and I think is missing for blockbusters today. It is, unembarrassed to be what it is what I'll say. Mm-hmm. And it works because of that. Nicolas Cage and John Travolta giving, very campy, absurd performances, but they work so well.
The scene where he's in the priest, where he's like grabbing the girl's ass is so funny.
Like, it opens with that. That's so good. Yeah.
No, this is the worst movie on this list. Like, no, I don't mean to borrow like 15. This is the worst movie of these 100 movies.
Worse than George of the Jungle.
Yes.
Worse than Dick Tracy.
The Flintstones.
Dick Tracy's an interesting movie. I'll defend Dick Tracy.
Live action Flintstones.
This is worse.
Batman and Robin.
Bad.
Oh fuck! Is that on here?
Batman and Robin.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
All right, you got me on that one. All right, this is the second worst movie on this.
Oh, I love it.
Face Off. I agree with you though. It is it's maybe not like the best movie on here. In fact, it's definitively
No
I
shit.
got, I think 30 movies, 40 movies ranked above it.
But as far as like movies that I think in my brain where I'm thinking of like a 90s blockbuster, like let's embrace the insane bullshit. Like that is one, like you go, there's 3 different TMNT Secret of the Ooze movies on here. Like embracing that I think is in my brain some part of the 90s blockbuster.
We're kid movies. This wasn't a kid movie. This was bad.
No, this is great.
Face off the board. I'll pick one. There are, I think, kind of like what you're saying, there are definitely better movies on the board here. I have such a fondness for Rush Hour. I think as far as like comedies go, it was such a perfect blend of like legitimately very funny humor and great action, which like Jackie Chan has obviously always been phenomenal at. So many cool actual fight scenes. And then on top of that, like I was just watching the scene last night where like Chris Tucker tries to give Jackie Chan his like ID to use as a policeman. He's like, here, use my ID when you go in. And he looks at it, it's a picture of Chris Rock, or rather, Chris Tucker. And Jackie Chan's like, no, I can't use this. I'm not 6'3". And it's just like little shit like that is so funny. It's like to me that it's got to be Rush Hour. I like all the Rush Hours, but Rush Hour 1 specifically, really.
See, I wanted to take it, but my only issue, and this is Austin Powers 2 is on this list too.
Yeah,
not 1, is where I like Rush Hour 2 better, and I like Austin Powers 1 better, so it doesn't feel right taking it.
That is Austin Powers 1, 99.
99 is Austin Powers 1. That's not the first one.
Really? Okay. When I was looking it up, I thought that was the second one.
Yeah, right. That's the first one, I believe. But yeah, Austin or Rush Hour, I have a huge fondness for.
Good.
Except for the director, main name was here. But other than that, great, fantastic film, great action. Ratner, I believe, was
Brett Ratner. Ratner.
But everything else about it, love it. So Rush Hour off the board, and also what do you call it? The kids singing like fantasy. You know what I mean? Like in the backseat of the car. Like that's a good kid actor too. That was I liked it.
Can I change my last pick if Klemmer doesn't take it?
Yes,
Klemmer
please.
doesn't
yes,
take. If Klemmer doesn't take Austin Powers, then you are free.
No, he can. No, he can take it.
I just realized.
Face off.
I just realized there's a movie on here that I have to take.
Oh, not Austin Powers. Okay.
No, staring me right in the face. Titanic. I have to have Titanic. I need James Cameron.
Thank God.
Titanic is. I mean, it was the blockbuster until James Cameron supplanted it with one of his own. And it might still be the blockbuster in my mind. Like Titanic. I mean, it's Titanic. Fantastic. Leo. Kate Winslet, the most beautiful woman who's ever lived. Billy fucking Zane. So good.
Titanic came out in December of 97. And it was in top 10, not only in theaters, it was top 10 until April, which is fucking wild.
So that was one that was on top 10 of both 97 and 98. I believe it was number like here somewhere, like 5 or 6 for 97, and also number
like
1 for 98.
Yeah, that's just insane. Like this, you had these young girls who would just go see DiCaprio like they would see them they would like go on a Saturday and see it like 4 times that day. It was insane how much money. This was number 1 for so long. I said top 10 for months. I remember this summer you'd see it in theaters, like summer of 98. It came out in December. Think about that. And you're like seeing it. Well, my first movie I ever saw in theaters was E.T. And that was in 80. I saw it in 83. It came out in 82. And it was theaters a year later because it was before like a lot of people had VCRs. So movies would run for a year, like in theaters, which is crazy. I know it doesn't make sense to us. But in 98, that didn't happen because everyone had Blockbuster and stuff, but it still was in theaters that long. It was making that much money. Titanic's a great choice.
So, Connor, you have the last pick.
Yeah. You mentioned Rush Hour as a comedy in 98. I thought you were going to go a different direction, a better direction. I'll do it. I'll do that for you, though, Kenjac. There's Something About Mary. Yeah. Like this movie's so funny. Nepalese coins, Matt Dillon's performance. I love this movie so much. I rewatched it this year. I was still laughing my ass off the entire time. When you think of 90s comedies, to me, you think of this, a movie that's fearless, that's never like out of the way cruel, but it's always kind of like mean enough, but funny enough. And at the end, it was like, it has like a decent enough, like, I don't say message, but a decent enough, like, all right, everyone kind of got what they deserved at the end.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
This is, to me, the quintessential. It's not the best 90s movie, 90s comedy, excuse me, but it's the most quintessential, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly the most successful.
Yes, it's like one of the most successful financially comedies that you'll see on this entire list. It's crazy. And like a movie like that in my brain, if you made like whatever the modern day equivalent of There's Something About Mary, like it would never reach top 10 in box office.
Oh God, no. God. And I will say, even when this came out, it was shocking it did so well.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that unexpected because remember, the Farrelly Brothers had just made Dumb and Dumber, and that made a 4th. I know it's not in the top, but it must have just missed. So
and it propelled them all the way to Green Book. Yeah.
How are the fellas talking about Cameron Diaz on the streets when that was she
Well,
the GOAT?
I'll tell you right now. You know
Was
when
she
people
the
were talking
GOAT?
about Cameron Diaz in the streets?
The Mask.
The Mask. When that came
Yeah.
out,
Oh yeah.
woo, I'll
Putting
put it this way. There were many days at my lunch table where Cameron Diaz was a major topic of conversation.
The fucking the Mask, and then even like what do you call it? Gangs of New York? Like there's a long stretch.
Check her out in Any Given Sunday. She looks fantastic.
Yeah. But yeah, there's something about it. So our lists are Gooch, you have The Matrix, The Lion King, A Few Good Men, Crimson Tide, and Titanic. I have T2, Jurassic Park, Saving Private Ryan, Mission Impossible, and Rush Hour. Klemmer, you have Good Will Hunting, Silence of the Lambs, The Sixth Sense, The Fugitive, and There's Something About Mary. I have an additional exercise maybe we could do here. Pick one movie on here you think is the worst. How about that?
Sure. I will say, Kenjac, if you're looking at blockbusters, I think you won. Like you had the best list of blockbusters.
I have the chalkiest picks. There's no doubt about that. But other than I still at the same time, like I don't want to act like it's like I'm selling out for that. Like I genuinely love all these movies and still would have picked them anyway. So it doesn't really matter that much to me. So pick which one you think is the worst, Gooch.
I think it's that Flintstones live action movie.
That's really good.
It's really like even as a kid, and it's like it's clearly made for children. It was bad when I was a child. Like I was like, this is stinky, daddy.
I saw it in the theaters.
Oh no!
So there is one thing about this movie. It made the McRib become pretty popular.
Yeah,
like McRib had kind of been around, but when this came out, they had like Fred Flintstone carrying around the ribs. You know how he does in the credits.
Yeah.
And McRib became like a major thing. So, and it's also Elizabeth Taylor's last movie, I believe.
Oh, was it really? Wow. I guess that makes sense. Oh, what would she play in?
They killed her.
She played Vilma's mom, so Fred's mother-in-law.
Ah, okay. I haven't seen the movie in ages, but yeah, I remember.
Halle Berry's in it.
Goodman Moranis, and Halle Berry and
Rosie O'Donnell and Elizabeth Perkins.
That was it. So the Flintstones. Me looking at this list, I'm shocked. Like I think it's not that shocked that Backdraft made it. I don't know.
No, that movie did. Ron Howard. That movie did really well. Robert De Niro, Donald Sutherland. It did really well.
Yeah, I'm just a little shocked that one made it up the list. And some of these other ones, I mean, there's the obvious one staring us right in the face, and it's Batman and Robin. Yeah. Batman and Robin is so bad. It is an awful movie.
But it has like the value of like it does have like an entertainment value to it.
That's true. But I guess you could say that about the Flintstones to a degree. Not as much where it's so bad it's good. It's just kind of like not a very funny comedy. I don't know. I would stick with that. I think Batman and Robin, it is truly terrible. But I would agree with you that there are some moments where it's so bad it's good. Like just what killed the dinosaurs, the Ice Age, like shit like that. So.
Just realized one. Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump. Well, Klemmer's up. You can pick it if he wants. I know he's not a fan.
I hate Gump, but I shouldn't say hate it. Forrest Gump is baby boomer porn. It's annoying. Mm-hmm. Batman and Robin is a worse movie than Flintstones, but it is significantly more entertaining. Although both movies are fun, like hate watches. I'm sure I'm gonna get shit for this online. This is fine. I'm gonna go with Face Off. Face Off is a truly terrible movie. I know people do care for it. I know like it's a kitschy thing for people, and it's like, but it's just a bad movie. I would say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 is bad. 3 is worse. I got to go Face Off. Yeah.
Face Off. Are there any on here that you are shocked are in the top 10 of their respective year? Like something's like The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. I'm like, how did that?
It was a huge movie, 10? Man. Like people loved it. Babysitter, evil babysitter. Rebecca De Mornay.
Yeah, it's just one of those things though. Like you see, like when you look at that name backed up against like a Batman IP or Aladdin or like even like a Basic Instinct, where like it's like how is this here or Wayne's World like tied into a show like or Home Alone 2? Like how is that even close to that? Is why
hindsight's 2020, but Blair Witch Project, like Klemmer said, being in the top 10 list is crazy. I mean,
but it was like there was no movie people talked about more.
Yeah, but
for real, like it was. I'm surprised not higher.
And it cost like what $40,000 to make.
Yeah, that's what I mean by it. It's like it's just crazy that even happened.
People thought it was a real snuff film. People thought it was real.
It was it's like 3 film students in Maryland made it for like with like a box of scraps, dude. And it is that movie. That's a movie I watched and I was horrified by because I have woods in my backyard growing up. Did not go out at nighttime for like 10 years after that.
Like Ransom on this list. So I love the movie Ransom. No one else likes it. It's Ron Howard, Mel Gibson movie. I think it's fantastic. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I think it's really, really, really good. But it's a movie that I felt was like underrated or not respected enough. But the idea that it was 6 that year kind of blows my mind. Because it was like, I knew he did well, but I didn't know it did that well.
We mentioned it before, but like Dick Tracy and Driving Miss Daisy is kind of like in retrospect shocking. Like how
it shouldn't be though. I mean, that was a Best Picture winner.
Yeah.
And then Dick Tracy actually that underperformed.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, people thought that was going to be the biggest hit of the year. Warren Beatty was a huge star at the time. He had Al Pacino, Dustin Hoffman, Madonna had a hit song from it, was in it. No movie in this list, I swear to God, no movie in 1990 got more buzz than Dick Tracy.
How about Sister Act?
Surprise hit. Whoopi Goldberg was coming off Ghost, I believe. And she just won the Oscar, and she was a pretty big star, but no one expected it to do that well.
The Firm makes
John Grisham and Tom
Free Willy. Is that just strictly because of the Michael Jackson song? Like,
no, it's a kids movie that it certainly helped, but it was just a kids movie. People went and saw.
It just feels like a weird one.
It is
even being a kids movie.
That surprised me on this list.
I mean, Casper maybe, but like Casper is like kids movie. That I get that part makes sense. Birdcage, like
Robert Williams,
yeah,
around the same time as Good Will Hunting, right? Or just before. Gene
First Wives
Hackman
Club, right? First Wives Club. I think that's a fair one to say. Like that doesn't totally, especially up against like a Twister or Independence Day or The Rock. Where it's
but to be fair though, Independence Day and Twister made probably 3 times what First Wives.
That's true.
It was 10th. Like, but is it shocking it's on there a little bit? But honestly, the women love that fucking movie, man. Like,
My Best Friend's
I
Wedding.
want to say that came out in the fall. I could be wrong, and women just flocked to it.
How about My Best Friend's Wedding?
Cameron Diaz, Julia Roberts.
That makes sense.
Yeah. True. But anyway, that's our 90s breakdown of 90s blockbusters. Thank you, Hummer, for joining in. Next week, I promise, this is a promise to God, I will see Anora, and we could talk about Anora. Maybe Klemmer, we should go with fights and Owen if we can.
I desperately want to see Anora. I am happy to see that whenever you guys want. There's one theater right near me, right near the tram, but I'll go anywhere you guys want.
Yeah, we'll find a way to see Anora. So see Anora. It's again, all anyone's talking about is how good Anora is. So go see that. Let's
make plans to see it for real. I definitely want to see it. I will go whenever you want.
We'll figure it out. But until then, we'll see you guys next week.